These times are coming. We told you about them, but you motherfuckers was sleeping. Now you gotta wake up.
The time has come. Low key.
Yeah.
Immortal technique.
Harlem, motherfucker. We here.
Let's make history. From West End to the West Bank, I write righteous rhymes with my right and wrestle the devil with my left hand. Never worked for a Zion, it's never been a yes man. My art is like Rembrandt painting pictures of death camps. The average person is allergic to the words of wisdom. This is for everyone, the Saddam's Kurdish murder victims, and all the pure souls that never had the chance to speak. Truth pumps in my arteries and causes my heart to beat. For soldiers haunted and tortured by guilty memories, who realize too late to reveal their real enemy. It's all dead wrong. For every victim of racist persecution, from Auschwitz to Hebron, my words may sting cowards. For people that were atomized by the third mate in the Twin Towers. Those living through the wars ask me what I do this for. Put the world in its place before it puts you in yours. You can try to avoid us, but it's pointless. You can never avoid the voices of the voiceless.
Take our freedom, take our pride. Come one day we will survive.
You can try to avoid us, but it's pointless. You can never avoid the voices of the voiceless.
Keep my third eye hidden under my New York fitted. A crazy unmarried man that deserves to be committed. The future is encrypted in my troubled lyrics. Dream that I've been somewhere for weeks and wake up in a couple minutes. Sweat dripping with visions of population control. Thoughts overflowing my world like the melting of the North Pole. My people are targeted by military crack committees, so I'm bucking at the feds like natives in Rapid City. Reality savage, my words are like a riot in Paris. The voice of the voiceless, that voice is social imbalance. So stand strong or sit harder in your mental palace. Blinded inside the kingdom, united to its old habits. Middle passage coming, war chant, African drumming, Gatling gun humming, rapid fire mechanism. Reckless living that checks the rhythm of perfectionism. Slave condition while you singing God save the system.
You can try to avoid us, but it's pointless. You can never avoid the voices of the voiceless.
Take our freedom, take our pride. Come one day we will survive.
You can try to avoid us, but it's pointless. You can never avoid the voices of the voiceless. Detain my body, but you can't imprison my mind. If it's my time, I'll probably die with my fist in the sky. These are the thoughts of a man who can't escape from his coma. Cries of a young virgin girl who got raped by them soldiers.
Birthing a screaming bastard post-colonial nation, subject to childhood diseases, famine, war, and inflation. Education molded you into your master's image, and you forgot who the fuck you were before the war was
You're
finished.
hearing the ghosts of Nagasaki, you're hearing Hiroshima. Beautiful babies being born with the weirdest features. You might never see me in the chart, but inshallah my seed can see peace in Iraq.
But peace and freedom can never be given, that's historically forbidden. Cause only collision is the recipe, changing the course of destiny. So I'm strapping weaponry, cause the government don't give a fuck about protecting me.
You can try to avoid us, but it's pointless. You can never avoid the voices of the voiceless.
Take our freedom, take our pride. Come one day we will survive.
You can try to avoid us, but it's pointless. You can never avoid the voices of the voiceless. Little man never did exams, got a particular bigger plan, flipping grams when a bigger man in his gang gave him a stick to bang. Or maybe just hold, cause no one thought he would kill a man till he caught a silly Billy villain chilling in the jam, sipping sham, spliff in his hand, triggered in a jam. Bang, bang, biddy, bang, now he's in the can, thinking damn what a pity fan rappers are yapping and flapping their lips about how they're packing and clapping their sticks. Has to be big, the impact it has on the kids, tell me where the factory is. The government killed it, just stacking their chips. You wonder why the youth them are strapped and they're pissed. If not a nine, it's a knife getting jabbed in your ribs. People die for the petrol and gas and our whip. In London, you can get shanked in the heart, still the government put more tax in the rock. Ignorant little spitters are talking greasy, cause they bitten bits that they saw on TV. If all you rap about is the holes in the dope, it's already too late. You sold them, you sold. You jokers act like you know, but you don't, cause there's little kids dying all over the globe.
My lights out on nights out, but days in spent blazing. Didn't tell me to navigate ways in the mazes. A white out, it's right out, amazing to think. Now let the revolutionary sing.
Stand up for your rights and fight for revolution. Free your mind and so ignite the Constitution. Cause they're killing us all. They're killing us all.
Little man never did exams. He be chilling with his fam in a flat, spliffing and spitting raps. But there's more than one way to skin a cat. Gotta make up for the things that he didn't have. Wanna be the damn little man's got bigger plans. Wanna be bigger than Jigger and kill a can. Picture that while he's sitting back, sipping out a Guinness can for the chat. Done with the chit chat, little man stealing crack for a bit of cash. Got his shit on smash, billing stack, living isn't bad. Till the cat got on his flat and hit him with a bat. And he found where they hid his stash, little man found it, he getting back. Now he really mad. Feeling militant, put on his Timberlands and headed to the flat where the cats that had jacked him was chilling at. Ball through the gas, fill it with gas, and lit a match. Put it in the ram, then it went kabang. But the cat's whole family was in the flat. Now it's definitely death or prison for little man. He could have been one in a million, he could have had the whole world in his hands. But shit in the fan when the cat come back with the strap, put the trigger back, finish little man in the flash is a fact. Revolution is dead
My
now.
lights out on nights out, but days in spent blazing. Didn't tell me to navigate ways in the mazes. A white out, it's right out, amazing to think. Now let the revolutionary sing.
Stand up for your rights and fight for revolution. Free your mind and so ignite the Constitution. Cause they're killing us all. They're killing us all. Stand up for your rights and fight for revolution. Free your mind and so ignite the Constitution. Cause they're killing us all. They're killing us all.
I need to activate Intel Virtual Camera. Well, let me do the camera swap, and if I just use the raw camera, it's fucking annoying. Studio... Where the fuck is... Camera... on? Come on, Intel. Can you not make good software? It's currently being used. 1 second. Let me just nuke myself out of orbit. Intel Virtual Camera. Now I am nowhere. Very lovely frozen image of me there. 1 second. Now, when I do it, Intel will stop being a cunt. She says, oh, Intel has stopped being a cunt. Hi. Oh, it always catches me off guard. But, you know, this broadcast is going to be more defined by incoherent rage. Because, like, this is about something that has been perpetuating in the UK for quite a few years now. But the main big, like pleneth that is being used by the current Labour government and by the previous Conservative government to attack the healthcare of trans youth comes from a CAS review from April, March. No, sorry, April, May, or June last year. Maybe July. It was a Cass review from Dr. Cass, who has like gone on a war against puberty blockers. Essentially, data has been used to turn around and claim that puberty blockers do nothing for anyone, and it's using a lot of bullshit methodology. One of the bullshit methods you use to make these stupid determinations is not even understanding the whole point of puberty blockers. Puberty blockers give you a choice because, do you know what? You could be wrong as much as you could be right about something if you're not like able to explore it yourself. That's one of the most important things of it, and like as someone who's young and getting the chance to explore that is the healthy route about it. And so like puberty blockers are a no nonsense kind of situation. You find out that you don't want to transition, or you're trans but you don't want to medically transition. There's a lot of like routes people might want to go about things. You can just stop them and your body will just be like, whoa, wait, weren't we supposed to do that hormone development shit? And then they'll just pump it through you. My old man, due to medical issues, the shit that he was wrongly diagnosed with epilepsy at a time when they gave you shit that would essentially work like a puberty blocker for epilepsy, and his puberty was delayed until he was like in his teens. That was when it was like kicking off for him, and he went through completely normal puberty. Like this idea that like a delayed puberty is some sort of form of like great evil that's not worth the risk is insanity, and it is confounded on lies. But you know, like go the other route. You don't go down the route of puberty blockers. Turns out you are trans and want to medically transition. Well, you're in a situation like someone like me who started at 24, where I have to deal with the pubescent shit I got from testosterone. I got to deal with that. That's something that, like, some of it I can reverse, but like some of it is here to stay. My rib cage is not going to shrink any fucking time soon, you know? And that's really dysphoria inducing. It drives me insane. I get fucking really bad dysphoria every fucking day because of the way my body is shaped and feels. If I could have had puberty blockers when I was younger, it would have helped a hell of a lot of stuff. And that's the baseline of it. There's only one aspect of like trans affirming care that's really important. They're not just trying to target that, they're trying to target the use of your actual name, your actual like sex and gender as to how you identify it, and other stuff like that. They're making confounded, mindless accusations as though like people transitioning their identity as not just medicine, their identity, the basics, the core essence of transition. Just doing that is apparently too much for the medical industry to keep up with, which is a lie. They're basically making out as if like you're confusing medical records. Updating medical records confuses nothing. It confuses nothing. What is it fucking confusing? Something being said, we'll get into it in a moment, but something about like NHS numbers being changed and all that. And now NHS numbers can change, but it changes on your file. You have a file, and then it is the universal. Your NHS number is the universal index of like your NHS like information, your documentation. And they're like trying to make some confounded issue of how like, well, these people have changed NHS numbers, which isn't even the normal policy. Normally they just change, because they did it with me. My NHS number's still the same, but it says I'm female on my thing, and I haven't even got like my like legal name changed. The hospital just did it for me. The GP didn't. GP were actually kind of bastards about it, but the hospital just turned around and was like, and they switched it full blown to female. I get like smear test letters now. I'm sure that enrages the current Labor administration, and they want to get me on that one of evil behavior. But and nothing's confused. My medical records just as consistent or inconsistent, depending on how you want to look at it, as they were before. Like it is because they use the like some accounts language. This is a thing to understand with what we're going to talk about here is that transphobia in the UK is a little less blunt than what you will see in the US. It is the same shit, but rather than just saying the quiet part out loud, which seems to be America's approach to, protecting kids or whatever the fucking hell they want to word it as. I think Trump called it like Save Children Day or something like that, like liberate children. Over here, we do this what we call polite transphobia. It's It's respectability politics essentially, but like what they'll do is they'll turn around and be like, well, we're in support of the needs of some of these children. There are some of these children are actually trans. Now, you already see there's some chief language here. It's like, well, some of them have got to be trans. So they're already pushing like a detransition narrative with a lot of the rhetorics that are thrown around. And then they'll start going on about, well, that's over diagnosis of people who then somewhat detrans, blah 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 blah. But they say all this like shit that's unsubstantiated, that's full of fucking lies, and they try to make this kind of implication that like actually providing puberty blockers would be dangerous because there's like little information that suggests that it's like useful apparently, which is not true. There's actually loads of data that suggests that's incredibly helpful. I have spoken with trans youth who take puberty blockers. They find it to be very helpful, especially when they finally get to, 15, 16, 17, when they could, well, before the laws came in last year, that they could get onto HRT and they could get some fucking estrogen or testosterone, depending on how they want to have how they want to pepperoni up their system. Bada bing, bada boom. It causes a lot of fucking great care for people. But you know why there isn't a lot of fucking like information on this shit? Is that the larger the better approach towards this kind of stuff was only a recent change. It used to be incredibly fucking hard to impossible to get your kid hormone puberty blockers if they're trans. Oh, if they're not trans, fine. I mean, most people on puberty blockers are not trans. But then, we get a loosening up of the laws about 10 years ago, a bit less than that actually. And, puberty blockers start getting prescribed a lot more to trans youth. It's still not enough. There's still been a stigma against it the whole time. It's never gone away, even in the medical industry. Then we rip it away. In 10 years, the first kids getting prescribed like puberty blockers between like 7 and 15 are my age at most, and for a lot of them they're going to be like, we're talking like the first rounds. So like if 9 is like the typical, like the youngest age they tend to give puberty blockers, 10 years, 19. So, like, people are only just, like, becoming adults and are only just getting on stuff like that. And a lot of these people, we're going off a 10-year period. Well, 2024 was when they got rid of the ability for kids to get onto puberty blockers and HRT at, like, 15, 16, 17. You have to be 18 plus to get onto hormone replacement therapy. So, like, the pool of data that they have to try and say that there is like little data for puberty blockers working, really, I would argue there's enough to say that there is, but it is still a very slim amount of data, especially when we're looking at like the larger pool of like HRT data as well, because it took us a while to get our head around HRT data. And you know why? Because of biases. Because the people doing the research were biased and wanted a specific result. That's the big problem that we have to consider here, is that the cis heterosexual heteronormative patriarchy has a certain perception on stuff that affects trans people, and the idea that your kid would stop their puberty because they may or may not be trans is something that like harrows the minds of the helicopter parent mentality that exudes not just the parental guardianship of children in this country, but the way our actual institutional systems handle the needs of these people. That is a paramount issue when we're looking at a lot of this stuff, is that this is very fucking biased bullshit. Um, One second. Sorry, I'm having to open up other tabs for my chat because fucking the thing glitched out. I had to like rename my stream. I used the OBS insert to like name it and everything, and I doesn't want to fucking work. Okay, let's pause the preview. Chat. Okay, there's no chats. Just making sure. I don't actually know if it will tell me. Got 3 people viewing. What's it? So, main program monitor. Here we go. NHS new service spec for trans children out, which is based off the Cast Review article I was mentioning earlier. It has so much transphobia, conversion abuse, healthcare violence, bad science, weaponizing of safeguarding to attack trans kids, invasive assessment, denial of healthcare, oppression. I don't think I've got it in me today to write a summary. Makes me feel sick. It is written in the UK form of polite transphobia, but is just as violent, as depressive as Trump stuff from the US. Perhaps a casual reader won't notice the polite violence, but it is there and is steeped throughout the NHS approach to trans children. Unfortunately, this link doesn't work anymore. I do have the reviews in my tabs, but I don't think we got the time to go over them today. I might do some skimming, but I got a few like smaller articles to go through that talk about this issue. Maybe I'll comment on just one tiny section that I hadn't seen before. Most of it is recycled transphobia that has appeared before in many other versions. Check this section. Quote, there are also accounts of children and young people at safeguarding risk being lost to follow-up and or of young people presenting to an emergency department with a safeguarding history that staff were unaware of because of change of name and NHS number. Remember what I was going on about before, or I was saying, like, first, this use of language, there are also accounts. Accounts. Not, quote, this specialist organization or this accredited institution or this substantive, just some accounts. The whole point of peer review and analysis and structure. We are talking about the Cast Review by Dr. Cast. This is supposed to be a peer-reviewed, structured, scientific journal and advice. It's what the NHS defines a lot of its specifications for treatment and handling of care. And There are also accounts. That's your substantive piece of information to say that this is a real thing. Not, here's some actual information and some events or some cited situations of this happening. This is a review, a journal, a scientific piece of information. The whole point of this kind of stuff. This kind of approach towards information is what I expect from Jordan fucking Peterson. You know, this very like fucking needle mouthed well, you know, some people say, fucking Ben Shapiro ass fucking approach towards like science. Like, no, you must substantiate to me who, what, why, where, and when. Basic literary devices, but they're also really important for science, it fucking turns out. Almost like a lot of these things intersect. And if you can't substantiate that, that's bullshit. That is not substantive. Some accounts, what are these accounts? What do they entail? You are specifically speaking nonsense. Most people don't even get the NHS number changed, but even if it does, you're changing it on the file. If you're making a new NHS number, which happens for all sorts of different reasons, they're supposed to import your data. And that's not a problem of your NHS number changing. That happens to people who are not trans, and the system is able to deal with it. Like, it is a complete insanity to think that that's not something that can be dealt with, or that it's the problem of trans people. Oh no, like the system can't seem to handle people changing their names or their numbers. Fix the fucking system. That shouldn't be our fault. It shouldn't be a thing where it's like, well, you know, maybe trans youth shouldn't be changing their gender or their name or their NHS number, which, like, I don't want it to be requested to change your NHS number, but they're putting the onus of the bureaucracy of the NHS onto trans kids. And that's if you could even substantiate some accounts. Fuck off. And last month, the UK government, led by Streeting, removed the right of trans children and adolescents updating their NHS sex gender record. I bet this specific sentence was used as a key justification. And Streeting, the Labour politician who has been under attack for basically signing the death warrant on trans children, he has basically turned around and said, you must get misgendered, dead named, and fucking everything under the sun by your fucking doctor, by your fucking nurse, by your medical records. That every time you get a letter, it will be, well, they're youths, so it'll be like master or miss. You don't call you mister until you get a certain age. Stupid fucking like gender shit. But they'll rake you over the coals with this shit. In a transphobic world, the phrase, quote, there are accounts, end quote, is very easy pretext to justify sweeping removal of rights, sweeping harms to hundreds or thousands of trans under 18s. Where did those accounts come from? Did they ask a bunch of people who are part of an active hate campaign whether they would think any ill-defined stories of potential harm? Hate group, I heard about this really scary thing happening. Big risk. Sorry, I can't tell you where. Secrets. NHS report. There are accounts of this scary thing happening. Safeguarding. Risk. Danger. UK government, take away trans children rights now, cause safeguarding. UK government, child safeguarding now. US, sorry, us. Oh, right, how exactly? UK government, we have already removed all the rights for trans children. This is the reality of the situation. These governments are just making bullshit excuses to oppress people. The US is now doing the same thing for married women who changed their last name to their husband's name. It's voter suppression. Yeah. Um its means of putting people inside fucking boxes that fucking prevent them from being able to function and operate. It was like with the Luigi situation, that fucking one woman who made the. I mean, it was a common quote that Luigi put on his bullets, but she made the quote and fucking, like, got sent to fucking jail. If there's marginalized group anywhere in the world, the government will make any silly excuse to oppress them. Fuck the UK's transphobic shit. Yeah, they are coming like straight for the youth. They're going straight for the jugular, and the youth are like the thriving heart of the future of any movement. And so you strike at the heart of the youth. You're gonna strike at the heart of the whole movement to change the world in general. The world I fight for is the world that they gonna live in. And like the world we live in right now is getting worse and worse, and they are targeting the most vulnerable of the vulnerable groups, which is children. This is 100% what we see in the Sullivan Review, reciting a single anecdote about safeguarding with no independent confirmation that the story was true, that any actual harm had been identified. It's absurd, but somehow it's the basis of the NHS entirely reconfiguring a whole field of care. The third item that Sullivan flags as being of concern is safeguarding. Her evidence for this appears to be a single anecdote from an unidentified pediatrician. Let me, why can't I open in a new tab? Fucking stupid. Why does Blue Sky work like this? Fuck's sake, 1 second. I'm still reading the one thread, so I'm like, 1 minute. 1 fucking second. Alrighty. When you dig down into Sullivan's other justifications, they were built on the foundation of assertions that can be shown to be completely incorrect. The review also heard a series of accounts of children and young people at safeguarding risk being lost to follow-up and/or of young people presenting to the emergency department with a safeguarding history that staff were unaware about because of name changes and NHS number. And so that's the quote that they were referring to with the some accounts. Now, it might be possible to find what she's talking about in the supporting stakeholder session documentation, but it might also just be stuff she heard about the one-to-one interviews that she refers to but didn't, document. Is as explicit as she gets, lists sourced from safeguarding professionals, and note these are issues they have described and not necessarily events that have happened. Safeguarding professionals have described a range of situations where this has put children and young people at risk. These include young people attending hospital after self-harm, not being identifiable as a child already on a child protection order, records of previous trauma and/or physical ill health being lost, people who do not have parental responsibility, changing a child's name and gender, children being re-registered as the opposite gender in infancy, children on the child protection register being untraceable after moving to a new area. A lot of this just sounds like made up nonsense. Like, what? Like, how could someone without guardianship. See, they use the word parental responsibility, which is not the social services term you're supposed to use. Guardianship. So, like, you know, the guardians are the only people who have like the legal right to like fucking change the name of a child. The child, if you don't have legal responsibility over the child, you have no ability to change their fucking name. Like, that is absurd. That is frankly insanely absurd. It's hard to change your fucking name when you are an adult. Unless you're a cis and are just changing your name alone, then you might have an easier process with that because they added laws. It was last year or the year before to make it harder for trans people to change their name and gender. And the idea that like uh children being re-registered as the opposite gender in infancy. You know how old an infant is? Like 3 or less? Infancy. Like wild accusation, as if there's just like cis parents out there just like transing kids out the fucking gates. You leave the womb. Whoa, I want my kid to be trans when they grow up. I mean, that is probably how cis people would approach trans acceptance, is that they'd start fucking like being weirdos about it. But like, no, that is not happening. No, cis people can't even accept adults as being trans. You think they're very good at accepting children as being trans? This conversation right now wouldn't be happening if that was the case. This is a violation on like people's basic fucking rights, and it gets into the big question of how kids almost have no rights in this country. The rights that kids have are rights that their parents have, rights that their parents bear, not so much themselves. There are some things that you could say for them, like you shouldn't be abusing your kids. You could call that, a right not to bear harm. I knew that was the right when I was growing up, and no matter how many times I said it, it never stopped my dad from kicking the shit out of me. So, like, we don't have rights so long as there is no restriction on the abusive behaviors of parents, and so long as we have a governmental system that is a very abusive paternal patriarchal system that doesn't care for the rights of um of children and of minorities and of people who are like fucking out of the cis white male archetype. There's a pecking order, and you're all in the list. Line up, minorities, get in your perceived categories. Um, and it's just we're in a state of great terror. I still need to do a stream on it, but the U.S. right now is diving, not diving, they're already there. Nazism, straight for it, and like the UK appears to be towing a similar line, or like it's social fascism right now. But like when the UK institutes a reform style cut on disability care to provide for military spending. And then the Conservatives, who have become a hollow shell of Reform Party, because the only reason the Tories lost the last election was because their voters went and voted for Reform. The Labour Party actually got less votes this election than it got in 2019 when it was obliterated by the Conservatives. Um, the Tories turned around and was like, what, 5 billion? That's not good enough and is a bit too late. Really, it should be 12 billion. Because when you move the Overton window to the right, what happens? What is the point of consideration that we are to make when that Overton window progresses its way, diddly 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 dum, over to the fucking right? What does that fucking cause for us? It's a major point of consideration that we've got to fucking make. And what it does is open the door for the kind of fucking Nazism we are seeing take over America right now. Yep. Classic urban legend FOAF sourcing. Okay. God, the way the fucking Edge works. Edge, can you stop edging, please? Fucking hell. Is it gonna... Okay. Wow, this is a long thread. 1 second. Whoa. Third thread on the Sullivan Review, finally turning to the recommendations of the report. Most important bullshit it's spreading. I wasn't looking to touch the Sullivan Review, but it intersects and coincides, so we're going to drop the beat in that direction. Um, let's have a look at this second thread first. So some of the background of the review commissioned by Michelle Donnellan. Donnellan, who was the minister at the time, she announced at the Tory party conference. Oh my god, can we just have arrow scrolling, please? Should be implemented to pages that the fucking arrow keys scroll. It's fucking really useful, you know? Okay. An independent review was commissioned for Secretary of State Science, Innovative Technology. Characterized as a response to the slow creep of wokeism. Ew, American spelling. In scientific research. In other words, a standard extreme right MAGA-esque antipathy to, quote, DEI, end quote, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's actually supposed to be DEIA, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. In other words, a standard. Wait, sorry, one second. This was announced alongside other anti-trans initiatives, such as Steve Barclay's plans to segregate trans women in hospitals. Wes Streeting is a fan of this unworkable bigotry, by the way, and to allow patients to object to trans people providing care. Yeah, this is a big thing. I talked about it a bit last year. They want to segregate us to our own wards, or to shove us into male hospital wards. That's like the two options that they're providing. They say it as segregating trans people to a trans ward, but they mean trans women. They don't no one even thinks about trans men, because like trans men are just men. It's the way that like most of these people think about it. I'm not saying trans men don't face oppressions for being trans, but I'm saying that's the way it's often perceived. Like the worst thing a trans man can be is like someone trying to gain power that quote unquote wasn't supposed to be theirs. Trans women are the big focus. Trans misogyny. It gets into all of that where we are the fucking grand evil in like all of fucking this, and it gets into that way in which we're the big demonization point, we're the big evil on biology, on reality, and all the bad stuff that transition could do to the sanctity of women is because of trans women. We're the ones poisoning trans men and making them like get rid of their wombs or whatever, like J.K. Rowling suggests. And so like they don't even really think about trans men in a lot of these restrictions. They're just thinking about targeting trans women and trans girls. Trans men will get affected by this. Testosterone is already incredibly hard to get as a puberty, sorry, HRT. But the, uh, um, what's it? Sorry, but like the main propaganda focus point is on trans women and segregating us as much as humanly possible. And when you look at the trans misogynistic outlook on all of this sort of stuff, you look at like where men, cis women, and trans mask people all play different roles in being liberal mediators, trans men and cis women as being liberal mediators on oppression against trans women, because we're the ones who are out of line, and you got to keep them women in line. And it's kind of similar to the shit that happened with like the history of like gender slavery. We go all the way back like thousands and thousands and thousands of years, when tribes were like like murdering an entire tribe and stealing women, they would use the women of their tribe to re-educate and enslave the women of the stolen tribe. And that's the kind of shit you see with the liberalism and like trans misogyny that's produced by like cis women and trans men against trans women as sort of like adjudicators, as justifying like minorities justifying like violence against other minorities. Um, God, I can't remember the name of that fucking trans mass guy from America. His name starts with a B or something. I don't know if it's Buzz or whatever, but like it's a fucking cunt. He's a good example of like that trans misogyny in play. Fucking can't remember the cunt's name, but yeah, it's Steve Barclay. Nominal cunt. The latter of which we've already seen TPP opine would on its own be a fine justification for negating the fundamental rights of trans people. The actual examples of such justification he points to are ridiculous, such as A, data accuracy, meaning recording information that would be, on any common sense reading, inaccurate data, and B, allowing patients to know private information about healthcare practitioners. The stated aims of the report are already framed to um, presuppose that there should be a strong separation between quote unquote sex and quote unquote gender identity in data collection. Use your conclusion as an axiom and you are always going to win, right? And this is kind of an insanity of it all. You know what sex is short for? Do you want to know what sex is short for? Sexual gender. So, trying to treat sex as this unmoving biological thing is bullshit. They want to separate it so they can call you male while calling you a girl. So they can still fucking win. That's the fucking game. It's to win at oppressing trans people and making you always pegged to something you are not. I am a female. I am a woman. That is what I am. And I will die by the fucking. I'll die by my fucking sword. Like, you will not take that away from me, no matter what you do with these laws, no matter what you do with these fucking stealing of our rights. I will die by my sword that I am female, and I am a fucking woman, and I won't take that fucking bullshit. This is a way of trying to destroy people. I get letters with my dead name on it all the time. Just a letter, just words. That makes me feel disgusting. And I'm an adult with fully developed fucking, well, as fully developed as my emotions can be. Like I'm an adult. Like I'm 26 fucking ancient years old. You gotta imagine how fucking hard this is for someone who's like 9, 12, 14, 18, even 20. Fucking terrifying. And like having to have this constantly forced and thrown upon you. Like thrusted on you with no word and edgeways. Your rights don't matter because some fucking cis cunt has determined that you getting your rights is somehow actually dangerous. It's like do we have to constantly mention the percentage size, the low amount of people who actually get care. You know how hard it is for trans youth to get care before they banned it. Before they were even targeting trans care for youth, it was already fucking hard. It's hard enough to come out to your fucking cis parents who half the time won't understand and will try and shove you back in a fucking box. And basically, the answer to all of this is targeting. And it's because there is an active move for genocide. God, I have to cite the moves against the Jewish people during the Weimar the Weimar Republic. Like, we can go through how decades of attacks on Jewish people, all the way back to the 18 fucking 90s with the Kaiser. Like the genocide that occurred in 19 fucking 34 to 1945 against the Jewish community in Europe started its roots. I mean, you could talk the hundreds of years of anti-Semitism. I mean specifically that outburst of it in the way that it was. A lot of people would think it started with the Russian anti-Semites, but no, they just helped things worsen. It actually started with the Kaiser and what he had pushed for Germany to be. Kaiser Wilhelm II was massively anti-Semitic compared to Kaiser Wilhelm I, and more so Bismarck here. Bismarck is kind of the guy who founded the whole like Prussian Empire shibiz. He like was one of the big people that helped form Prussia as an imperial dominion over the rest of the Germanian peoples. And is the reason why Germany has this horrible internal colonial situation going on with itself that is not the topic of this video. But the Kaiser, when he came into power, Wilhelm II, was incredibly anti-Semitic. And his positions pushed against like the institutional acceptance of Jewish people. And so you saw at first more of a slow burner of an attack on like Jewish people within institutions. Then the 1920s come, the post-war period. Jewish people are massively blamed for the war, even though Jewish people fought in the war. Now, there was some Jewish socialists and communists who were conscientious objectors, but like the business class were massively behind the war. So like this whole idea that they weren't even for the war is actually a myth made by the Nazis and the Freikorps and people like that, as well as the Kaiser. But the Weimar Republic comes in. And the SDP and other organizations involved in the Weimar Republic were massively anti-Semitic. And this led to more institutional attacks against the Jewish community and led to a rehabilitation of physical violence against Jewish people, pogroms. And with the Russians invading the Soviets, the Russian, White Russians, they moving in, it then led to an integration of White Russian anti-Semitism with Germanian and Nordic anti-Semitism, and this formed Nazism. We are seeing a similar progression since the 1970s, 1960s with the trans community. Like, yeah, we've made some gains and losses here and there, but like the last 4 decades especially, it has been this up and down struggle with a lot of downs sending us further back than the gains we gain forward. It's every game we get, there's 2 losses to have to take after that game. And so like, you know, it's a little harder to do what the Nazis did, all that I described today, than it was back then. Israel has shown that there's still a way. But like dissemination is a lot harder, especially in the imperial core, where people have a greater like economic and stability, like capacity to engage in like their rights. Like when you are like economically held down and completely lack rights, you don't really have any bargaining ability to even like strengthen your rights. In the imperial core, one of the advantages that unfortunately comes with empire is that we can focus on our rights while other people can't. There's some benefits that we could get from that, but unfortunately, a lot of it just ends up being like swept away because bloodthirstiness is inherent to the imperial core, and so it's this tug of war game that doesn't actually work out very well. But we can bargain for our rights, and that's why we've made gains. But again, as I said, it's this tug of war against a much more like relentless power that is willing to play certain games with us. You know, the liberals, they don't care. It's more money for them. But the fascists, they ain't too fond of this. And so there's been a dissemination campaign. I mean, by the TERFs since the fucking 70s. But like when TERFs gained relevance in 97, and 2003 and times around there, and especially in the 2010s, this allowed for the institutions to get their assault on trans people locked down. Because now there's an outrage to lock onto. And like, this outrage has ties even with like anti vaxxer shit and all sorts of stuff like that. And it's all genocidal. It's all genocidal. That's what we are seeing. I could like pull up the 10 steps of genocide and go through the disseminations with you. We have reached the point where they are disseminating us as a kind of evil. That America's doing it right now. America's the big guinea pig for this stuff right now. And it looks like the UK is heading in that exact policy direction. But let's note that this report goes way beyond identifying obstacles and good practice guidance. For example, it specifies that actions should be taken. That actions should be taken that would disrupt long established practices and systems in highly dangerous ways in fields that the author has no expertise in. The NHS should cease the practice of using NHS numbers and change gender markers. Okay, I think it means it specifies that actions shouldn't be taken. Oh, wait. Oh, no. It's saying that, like, you should, like, that the NHS should take actions that would disrupt long-established practices. That's what I was talking about earlier. Like, the ability to change your NHS number or your name or anything like that is a long-established system that's probably as old as the NHS itself. Because it's been a thing you can legally do since names were a legally defined document. I could go look it up now if we really fucking need to, but you can go back to people changing their name legally 200 years ago in Britain. 300 years ago. We got the records for it. I think government records stopped by like 1666 or whenever it was that the parliament burnt down. Sometime in the 1600s. But like we've got an extensive amount of documentation about this sort of stuff. And I tell you now that you have been able to legally change your name since names were a legal part of a legal documented blog where you can petition to be like, hey, can I change my name here? And every name that, like, every time that my new name is referenced, it references to my documentation. Yes, no problem. I mean, it's not that easy. You have to go through a deed poll and all that sort of stuff. I imagine it wasn't like that before. I imagine it was a lot easier in the past. But modern day, you have to go through a deed poll. You go through that, you get it changed. Bingo. Gender, much harder to change because it involves trans people. Cis people can just change their names. Trans people, oh, they got gender in there. That's a lot harder and a much more newer established thing. But not like, it's not something outlandish for the NHS to deal with. Like I was going on about my own experience. Without a legal changing of my name or gender on my birth certificate, it still says my dead name and it still has my gender assigned at birth. And but the NHS still was able to change my name and my gender, and I have had zero problems with my documentation. Fucking zero. Now, is that anecdotal? Yes. Have I seen or heard anyone do it and have these problems? No. Is that also anecdotal? Yes. But when the shit that's telling me that that's how it is saying some accounts, provide them for me, because I have seen no accounts that are substantiated, that could be peer reviewed, that could be justified, that isn't just listening to transphobic fucking parents or to, we proved that it was just speculation. It was just speculation of things that could happen. This is so poorly substantiated. And because the cast review, I know now we've moved on to, What's the fucking name of this report? The Sullivan Review. I did have the name right in my head. Miss Cass, Dr. Cass, the good doctor, she has been getting attacked, correctly so, for the transphobic shit that is attacking trans youth care out there. And the BBC is doing a puff piece to protect her, defending her, being like, no, this is outlandish criticisms of her that have no basis. They don't have a counter to prove themselves. Just trying to say, nope, that's not how that worked. And just making like generalistic, unsubstantive, like bullshit. So they have the BBC, right on her back to come defend her. And for the Americans, the BBC is state media, like whichever the government is, does as the government says, media. It's not fully how it's like said to work, but that is how it works. The BBC is the state affiliated media. Um, it's kind of like what Fox News is now because of Trump, but like the US doesn't really have like a specific state affiliated like media. You would have hoped it'd have been PBS, but like not on that one. No, chief. But it's that sort of like the BBC is there to defend the transphobia of the system. It's like one of its major purposes. Sorry, just checking some things. Without bothering to investigate or care what the broader impacts of that would be, it's very reminiscent of the Cass review in that respect. An abstract notion of data purity is being used to dismantle the rights of trans people. We'll come back to this specific point. But note this was recommendation. Note this was But note this recommendation was immediately picked up and acted upon by Wes Streeting, with guidance being deleted from NHS websites again without any consideration of the potential impacts. Did it open it? Yeah, it did. Okay. You never trust Edge. And not to stray too far, but Streeting also promoted the entirely false notion that trans doctors' disciplinary records are wiped when they transition. This is complete lies. And links back again with the lies he was saying about the numbers and all that. All this idea as if your like documentation just blanks the moment you change your name or your gender. That's not how it works. The whole point of a legal means to change these is so that you are pegged to your documentation, to all of your documentation. It's kind of the central role of that kind of thing. Mind-blowing, I know. It's almost like these things are institutionally ran to keep a peg on information about people. And spreading a novel anti-trans conspiracy theory to add to the many other anti-trans actions attributable to him. Okay, that opened too. Oh, if I can just point back to the whole thing about the effects of anti-DEI in the US, it should be noted that this is just a report about data collection. There is a further Sullivan report on research yet to come. To put into perspective, Wes Streeting acted on a data collection research piece I mean, his decision would still be bad if he was acting on the research itself. But he instituted anti-trans policies based on, I mean, I imagine it's also based on the Cass review, but in this case, based on the Sullivan's. I mean, I think the Cass review is like a lot of the time about data collection, but it's got the research in there too. Poorly done research, but about data collection. That's about it's like the first part of it, you know? How you get the data to even like confound a research point, you know, like it's not the full study. And it's full of guideline suggestions that are inane. Like the Sullivan article already speaks too far out of fucking line. Like as far as like a data collection review should be fucking going for sure. Um and like I was saying earlier, it hides behind this confoundry of data purity to turn around and like suggest that it has an absolute understanding of the situation that will coincide with the research article that is going to be released. And Wes Streeting has implemented policy based on this that has removed like what is it like what was it the what is the wording used um yeah, the guidance guidance on like trans youth, trans people, gender identity and nomenclature is being under attack based on a data collection research article, not even the actual like the like full report on the research that was committed in that like original Sullivan report. And like again, even if they did act on it by the nth point, the policy they've enacted is anti-trans. Like the NHS systems get confused if you do a thing that they were designed to do. I don't think that's a problem with trans kids existing. I think that is a problem with the fucking NHS and its fucking bureaucracy. But again, from my own experience, these things can run perfectly fine, and I have no idea where this whole idea of changing your name and gender breaks your documentation records. I think this is a false flag against trans people. I think it is completely full of shit. I don't think. Now, again, if someone has evidence to the contrary, would love to see it. But I don't fucking think for a second that there is a single person who having their name, gender, God, no way, had their NHS number changed, has in any way, dislocated their medical record. And if it has happened, I would scratch that up to something that should be investigated for sabotage. Because my records, I mentioned it passingly, but I'll get into it actually. My records were originally sabotaged when I tried to get them changed by my GP. I passingly mentioned it, but when I went to my GP to tell them I was trans, rather than changing my name or my gender or my sex on my record, they instead just put it as a note and then left my record with my dead name and with my gender assigned at birth. And I would get into like situations at the hospital where I would be putting my correct name, I'd be putting my correct gender, because I ain't fucking playing fiddle to the NHS. And that was actually how I eventually got changed, was because it was confusing them because they were putting things in there that didn't show anything up on the system because, well, they hadn't been changed properly. And then that's how it got changed. Now, that's a confusion with medical records and stuff like that. But if you notice, it had nothing to do with me changing my name or gender on the system. It had everything to do with it being fucked around with being done wrong on purpose. Sabotage. So, I can fucking say I have experienced the sabotage side of this. I've never seen anyone go through it in like a meaningful, oh, the NHS system just didn't work well because I did a thing that a computer is able to do. Like, how a record works? I don't want to like get like condescending or anything, but like it's like a spreadsheet basically with fields, and you can let me lock my keyboard so I don't start inputting stuff. You can fill in those fields and change them and edit them. It does all this cool shit where a lot of it's automated. So like you change my sex to female and it puts me in the female category. It's wonderful things, technology. And like, well, a lot of people might not know how these things work because education is shit, and a lot of people like don't have the time or energy and capitalism to give a flying fuck about a lot of stuff in tech works. It is easy to change and easy to implement. And if there is somehow a problem with it, easy to solve. I'm not even very tech literate compared to people I've known. I've known some solid trans sisters who could fucking hack you in a moment. And they would tell you straight. Former trans sister of mine who I don't speak to no more was going through this problem with the old Mackie D's. And like, yeah, they could easily change their name and gender on there, and they sabotaged it on purpose. It's the only reason you sabotage something like that when it can easily be changed and done. Easily. Oh, sorry, I got a headache. Might not be able to go on for as long as I'd hoped for. Oh god, everything's all 8-bit with my glasses off. Wow, I can see you all again. Whoa. I have the restream open on my use my tablet as like a third monitor for my PC. And like if I can get this without unplugging it. I'm just paused. Back when I was on like the phone one. Just like I look so perplexed and like kind of pissed off. Like I look really fucking good. Like, ain't that bitch confused? Shit. Oh, I'm touching it. It's the power of touchscreens, eh? It's basically just a Wacom like monitor. It's like a Samsung like Tab 6 Lite or S6 Lite or whatever. Tab S6 Lite. Ugh, God, the Galaxy series is so over constrained. But yeah, what's it? Yeah, you got a tablet like that lying around Space Desk. Great application. And you can use it as like a Wacom monitor. Get yourself something like Critter and yeah, do some doodling. I got it for free with my phone because I was given an offer for an upgrade, and I was like, yeah, you can get a fucking tablet. And I'm like, well, hot damn, I love myself a tablet. Um, Verbatim. It has the forbidden words that characterize forbidden research. In the US now, if you want to get a fast forward of the ultimate result of pushing back on creeping wokery, or bad indigestion. I don't know. Maybe you fucking got something going on with your YouTube suggestions, but you could just leave. Like, you don't need to comment. There is There is the YouTube button at the top of your computer fucking screen. It like takes you back to the youtube.com main menu. I know, wild technology. Fucking crazy ass. Like motherfucker be like, why am I being suggested this? I don't know. Like why'd you click on it? Like The other writers of the report are all dyed-in-the-wool transphobes, by the way. The review is led by Professor Alice Sullivan, University College London, assisted by policy analysts Murray Blackburn Mackenzie and Dr. Catherine Webb, University at Oxford. Catherine Webb believes the internationally condemned Cass review that stripped away healthcare for trans youth was a, quote, breath of fresh air. She wants to use the same ghastly and dishonest distress framing to do the same to adults. Cass review is a breath of fresh air. We now need one for gender distressed adults. I need to type that out. See if we can get that article. Okay, the Telegraph, of course. Manage or reject. Let me just reject all. What do you mean it's a subscription service? You fucking cunts. Ooh. 7 days access if you sign in, so we can steal your data. Oh my god, I just want to read the fucking article. Okay. Okay. Trying your free article? It wasn't for sign in for 7 days of it. Like, that's my data is you know, fuck off with Camilla. Camilla needs to go die like a fucking husband too. Oh, sorry, the monarchy caught my attention. Their healthcare is likely to be affected by the same issues, so our learning should be applied here too. I might be able to just use the keyword on this one. As a clinical psychologist, the release of the cast review has been long awaited. What? God, not my first time dealing with Catherine Webb, but can we? Can clinical psychologists? Yes, Jordan. You too. Please stop. You are a clinical psychologist. You are not a gender specialist. You are not a climate scientist. You're a clinical psychologist. Shut up. Clinical psychologist just getting in everyone else's field. No, I'm not saying a clinical psychologist couldn't learn about like someone's issue. I mean, you'd expect a clinical psychologist would deal with trans people. At least you would hope. But like the ignorance that clinical psychologists display, I know people who've been raised by clinical psychologists, is abusive, like awfully. Like there are good ones for sure. I've known people who've dealt with good psychologists, but the field of psychology under capitalism promotes power over people in this really obscene and abusive way that paves the way for this kind of bullshit where someone like this can turn around and go, well, you know what? I think this is a great idea, but I think this needs to target adults too. She's being she's being the tuppence that pushes the pennies off the fucking plinth on, you know, like those coin machines at the fucking, like, the fair. She's that one tuppence that gets you the fiver. And it's going to push us into a deeper and darker issues. But we'll read on. I just got got like vexed. Another clinical psychologist just want to shut the fuck up. Although the review focused on the specialist children's GIDs, gender identity, what does the DS stand for? Gender Identity Development Service. They use is it like GIS for like a lot of them. It was like gender identity services or the so many different fucking names for it. Like, they really do this on fucking purpose. Also, GIDS service, wouldn't it be GID service because it's gender identity development services? Off to a good start. It also highlighted the crisis in wider mental health services nationally and even globally, and how to support these young people. Even at the world leading University of Oxford, psychologists have felt uncertainty about what they should be delivering to patients and teaching to students. For too long, the current approach to gender dysphoria care has left many of us feeling that fundamental principles of our professions were being neglected. At the heart of our practice should lie a commitment to understanding and supporting individuals holistically through evidence based practice. Amidst politicization of work at this era, escalating referrals, and a struggling healthcare system, some believe that these principles have been abandoned, with little resistance from bodies such as the British Psychological Society. An existing approach meant clinicians had limited ability to offer much more than a medical focused pathway, with affirming a child's self expressed gender identity as a panacea for often highly complex case presentations. Now, they've said this in this very complicated and ham fisted way. What they're trying to say here is fucked up. What they're trying to say is that the current approach, and they're absconing the British Psychological Society in this regard. I don't actually know what their positions are to say they have a good position, but they're absconing them and other organizations because they're saying bodies such as it's very under. This is a scientist speaking, by the way. You know, this is a doctor, and they can't be more definitive. But what they have turned around and been like is, well, you know, they take like medical focused pathways and like with affirming the child's expressed gender identity as a panacea for often highly. She's trying to be like, well, you know what? You don't know. Maybe there's some other psychological stuff going on. Maybe there's some other shit that's not them being trans. It's basically turning around and saying, ignore what a child tells you about themselves and dismiss it as something psychological that needs to be evaluated in this much more like mental health driven way. It's trying to treat like transness as something that is a byproduct of mental health problems or like that it could be, and like it's very ham-fisted shit. I mean, I'm sure there are people who have had medical problems that have sent them down those directions. I doubt that that has any substantive issue towards the need for trans children to get care. The 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 dislocation it brings to trans children's life to be like, well, you know, this approach could lead to some things being missed, so fuck everyone else, is stupid. At the end of the day, if you have some kind of psychological condition, there's going to be a lot more going on than you being fucking trans. Like even if that like psychological condition had something to do with gender, which I'm giving them way more bone meal than they deserve here. I mean, you could be trans and have that psychological condition. I know. I mean, I've got fucking mental health issues. I got psychological issues. They're not why I'm trans, but like any human being, they're affected by each other. My gender dysphoria affects my mental health, and worsens it drastically. Lack of effective trans care affects my mental health. You know, like this is a way of reducing the individual capacity for a trans kid to tell their parents or their doctor and to work with them on them being trans. It's a way of turning around and going, no, we need to send you through psychological red tape. That's what this is. I mean, we were already having that problem with the way the gender dysphoria thing was being used, but we managed to push back on that idea quite voraciously in trying to state that gender dysphoria is not a requirement to be trans. It's just not. We just live in a society that makes trans people feel gender dysphoric. I mean, even with a perfect society, there's always going to be people who are going to have gender dysphoria. Being trans is a very difficult process, but like in a in a good society, we would have means for like support to be ascertained towards. It would be easy to come out. It would be there would be a whole medical system that understands your right to understand who you are. I don't know who you are more than you know who you are. At least I fucking hope. Like, I hope you know yourself more than I do, because I don't fucking know who you are anyway. Like, but that's the important sort of thing. You can't tell me what my gender is. Only I can. And that's the same for you. I don't I don't have no power to say that your gender is what I fucking think it is. So why should these cunts have it? And it's always presented as a safeguarding thing. Always. Sorry, fibromyalgia with glasses is a nightmare. I'm just gonna have to take them off a second. I get bad headaches. I'm taking ibuprofen. I don't know what brand name to use to make it like, you know, relatable to the Americans. Ibuprofen. Do you guys get that brand? I don't know. Any Americans in the audience? You got a ibuprofen brand name I can use so it becomes more like relatable, or like is me just saying ibuprofen too abstract and not product based enough for the American audience to drop the beat on that one? But like, this assault is reaching a fever pitch. UK elections are once every 5 years. 2029 is the next general election, or at least what it's meant to be called. I explained it in the last video. The Prime Minister calls the general election. It's really easy to have a constitutional crisis over here. I mean, the Queen can just turn around and fucking boot the Prime Minister out of government, so like, it's easy to have a constitutional crisis here, but like, reform, even with the like drop in the polls, are doing scarily well. Transphobia has been like, the gates have been opened up. Wes Streeting's attack on trans kids was made possible by the Conservative Party's attack on trans kids, by the Cass Review's justification for banning indefinitely. That means a perma ban on giving trans youths puberty blockers. It is permanently banned. Indefinite. Until policy changes that. It has to be changed by policy. It's amazing how quick they can get policy through. You know, sometimes it takes 2 years for policy to get through in this country. That policy went through 2024. It went through the same year as the cast review was released. Like that. Wes Streeting is advancing that policy. Even more so, he hates the trans community virulently. And just as Barclay wanted to, he wants to segregate trans women in hospitals. Just as our healthcare is already segregated. You're a cis woman, you're going through menopause, you go to the GP, you can go get this. This is estradiol Valorate. It's one of the options. You can get the injection too, but like, I would have it if I had trans-affirming care, but I don't. I have to order these from Thailand. For me to get them, I have to go to the GP. I have to be referred to a gender clinic. And then I wait. And then I wait. And then I wait. And then I wait. For years. I don't know if you've noticed. GP didn't give me any gender-affirming care. Didn't give me anything. No psychological care, no medical care, no counseling support, no nothing. Nothing. What they gave me was this. Go pound sand if you want any fucking care. You're waiting. And you're waiting. And you're waiting. And then you have to be evaluated for all of this fucking shit by the gender clinic when you eventually get an appointment, which I haven't gotten to that point yet, but I know people who have, and they evaluate you for all this fucking shit. There's always bullshit crap that slows down even more because you don't get appointments very frequently with a trans clinic. I've had some people have better experiences. Most of them are before you've gone through the private system, though, which is better. Shouldn't be that way. The state system should be better, but unfortunately, you are more likely to get trans-affirming care this side of the fucking of 2030 if you go through private care. And like, you go through all these loops and loops, and then, ta-da! You get your fucking HRD. I don't see cis women having to go through that level of rigmarole, because they don't. And, that's bullshit. Like, and the whole idea of, oh, like, GPs, they don't know how to do it for trans women and stuff like that. GPs don't know off the top of their head what to give you for stuff. Like, you got something that requires a type of medication where it needs to be taken, let's say, like, by weight values. You think the GP's got it, like, on the top of their head, or like, oh, 1 milligram for every kilogram in your body. I know that off the top of my head. No. What they do is they go and check the standard on the fucking, like, resources that they have access to. They have access to special NHS resources. There's basically just, like, a load of HTML, like, website document stuff in, like, a server. Like, it's, like, their own, like, private thing they got access to. And you know what they can do? You know what's the wild thing that they can do? Read. They can read. They can read the specific standards that you're supposed to apply to someone of a specific group or of a specific health need, etc. And so what you do is you make a standard, you write how such standards are dictated, how you figure out how to provide care, and you make this written report available, and then you just tell GPs that when they're dealing with someone who's trans, here's the things that you look at, and here's the things you abide by. Every GP I've ever dealt with, unless they know off the top of their head, they go on their computer, they do this amazing thing called typing. And then they do this other amazing thing called reading. You know? It's wild. I'm gonna pop to the toilet. I'll be right back. I'll put the technical difficulty slide up because it's fun. But I'll be right back. lesbian beer pondy. Oh god. I need to get tested for asthma. I'm like fucking out of breath. I'm like the most basic of existence. The fun part of having glasses. It fucking always get messy. This became the Watch Storm Cleaner Glasses show. But to make up for my lack of American, relatability with me not knowing ibuprofen's most popular American brand name, I do have a sody pop, so I hope the Americans can forgive me. I don't actually give a fuck if the Americans will forgive me or not, but it is ginger beer. I don't know if that's too spicy for the white Americans. But like, I'm still gonna give my head a bit of a break. We still talk about some stuff, and I'll get back into the article. Um, I mean, what we see is certain experts in the medical community are coming down on the trans community in a multitude of different ways. One of them is much more blunt, where they are like pushing for a complete isolation of an exclusion of trans people as like an like affirming category. I mean, like the way she worded it here with the whole panacea shit. It's her almost turning around and going, well, it's not how child pathology works, which is bullshit. Like the whole idea that like no, this is not how child pathology works, and actually we could exponentialize this to adult pathology and how adults experience gender, gender distress. Ugh. It's trivializing transness as like dysmorphia. Um, it's why like terms like gender dysmorphia and bodily dysmorphia gets used instead of gender dysphoria. Um, because like dysmorphia comes with dysphoria, but when you try and say that someone is just suffering through bodily or gender dysmorphia, what you're really trying to say is that they don't feel like the gender that they are because they're like stereotyping or they're expecting more out of themselves, and actually you just need to normalize them to the gender that they were assigned at birth. That's what they're trying to say with shit like that. They're trying to turn around and be like, No, it's just a body dysmorphia thing. You're just not, you're holding yourself up to too high of a standard kind of nonsense. Like, it's trying to trivialize, like, your experiences and gaslight you. It's what it says, it's gaslighting. I know trans people who are in no gender distress at all, and they own it. They own that shit, So, like, what the fuck is any of this doing for those sisters? Gender distress? Okay, I have gender dysphoria, but I wouldn't characterize me being a woman as gender distress at all. And I have pretty bad gender dysphoria. Like, never call it gender distress. It's all about demonization. And the other side of things, we're talking about these experts, is the safeguarding mentality. And these are two sides of the same coin. I'm on about the two-pronged approach. So the second prong is that they're trying to protect us. Really? Protect us? From whom? From what? Ask yourselves, what is it? What is it that the TERFs are going to protect any of us from? What is it that this bullshit policy, demonizing people changing their name or gender on their NHS record because it somehow confuses documentation with no substantiation, no information. The cast review is supposed to be it is a peer-reviewed, scientific. God, you fucking take a shot every time I say scientific in this video. Scientific fucking study. To turn around and use maybes, some accounts, bullshit like that. You are complicit. Not just tacitly, not just by chance. You are actively complicit in spreading misinformation to ruin the lives of trans youths. And with the way that this woman in this article was reading, trans people in general, across the fucking board, you are destroying our lives actively. And, like, she's all wondering why she's under attack across the world. This cast review is the one from last year that is now being implemented as a part of the policies as to how the NHS is handling trans youths now, as well as the other, the Sullivan piece. And she's, like, denying it all, that she's caused any harm, even though, like, her thing was why the UK banned indefinitely puberty blockers for children. Claimed that there was no results whilst using cherry-picked and poorly led studies that have inherent biases to them. It is becoming increasingly hard to be a person in this current, like, era. It's becoming increasingly hard to be a minority in this current era. It is being increasingly hard to be a child in this era. They're looking at repealing child labor laws in America. The world is turning into fucking reaction. And if you want to know who gets sent to the fucking stake, who gets burnt at the faggot, who do you think that's gonna be? What do you think that word originally means? Bundle of sticks for burning. It's why they call us that. It's why they slur us as that. They are going to target us. They're going to target us. They are targeting us. We need to organize. We need to be actually applying safeguarding techniques and stratagems, actually providing resources, support, and activism that protects, informs, and supports our community as a whole, but especially the youths of our community who are the most vulnerable people in our community. It's children. This world needs to fucking wake the fuck up. We are in the 30s. Again. History often repeats itself. First there is tragedy. Then that tragedy is repeated as a farce. We are in the farce of a very, very dark tragedy. We are in the farcical of the most industrial genocide that had ever happened. And on scale, the genocide of the Palestinians is the most deadly genocide ever waged against the people. Like the rate of innocent deaths. Sorry, innocent deaths, civilian deaths. I mean, Palestinians are innocent across the board, but like the civilian deaths in Palestine, the rate is unprecedented. Broken records. Unprecedented. Palestine, its liberation or devastation defines geopolitics and defines world politics. And when we're seeing children get thrown to the meat grinder and the system cares more about demonizing Palestinians than it does about those women and children, that should set the precedent for you as to what this system, what the people ruling the cultural hegemony in this system think about vulnerable people. Because if like fucking bigotry conceded in this sort of situation, you look at it all. Before, they used to fall head over heels about how much they cared about children. And it was all lies. But now, they can't even pay lip service to the lies they used to play anymore. It's just out in the open. They are coming. They are coming for the youth. And they're coming for everyone else too. But they're coming for minorities. Trans people, especially trans people of color, are going to be on the chopping block in the United States of America, and that's gonna happen here. It's gonna be a slower burner right now because we got the social fascists in. But given that they're paving way for reform, for Nazism to take over our government too, the US is ahead of us. But we are trailing very, very close behind them. The special relationship as it always presides. And we're going downhill in that same fascist direction. And if we're to look at the Palestinian situation, I'm going to keep across many streams that relate to a lot of different issues that might not be Palestine. Palestine is still a defining point, a baseline, you may say, for a lot of this stuff. Because what's a key thing to understand here is Palestine and what goes on there has been defining class politics, racial politics, gender politics, and a lot of other stuff regarding how reactionaries have been responding to these things for decades. The police in New York City, which is also the NYPD, actually train police in the UK, and the training that they give the Metropolitan, the London Met, the training they give them, and other police constables and town and metropolitan police services, they trained them with training that they were given from the Israeli occupation forces. What goes on in Palestine heavily affects us. I mean, it's not a good argument for needing to focus on Palestine. Even if it fucking didn't, you should be focusing on it and struggling against it. We're watching the Holocaust. But, like, on a base understanding of how it relates to the attack on trans youth, the attack on Palestinian children has been wheedling away at the imperial core's fragile perception of children's rights. Like, we're already bad on this shit, like, still to this day, and we've had improvements since, like, the 60s. There has been some. And, like, the current situation in Palestine and the wheedling away of children's rights, the starvation, the fucking the taking away of medical supplies, of educational materials, of like things that we take for fucking granted, and we have shit rights on children. Child fucking labor, all sorts. Like they use Palestinians as fucking slaves. That shit is gonna be imported. What's one of the things to really understand about fascism is fascism imports a lot of colonial tactics to use at home. Colonialism and fascism are not one-to-one the same thing, but you can't have colonialism without fascism of some kind. And even more so, you can't have fascism without some form of, like, colonial style policy. The police, an institution, you get different ways of expressing something as fascist. Ideological fascism, when we're talking about like Nazism and etc. like that, we're talking of like an ideological movement to take over the system, to do their whatever third way bullshit. Bada bing, bada boom. The whole state turns fascist. You also have institutional like things that are fascist, always fascist. The military, the police. The police is a great example. You know what the police is based off of? For the US audience, I know y'all have like the slave catchers involved in that too, and I won't forget that part. But like even in the US, it's still also accounts, and they're based off of colonial garrisons. What was it that was in place as like the US's like standing force after they revolted? Was the colonial garrisons. The police is based off of colonial policing and fucking slave catching in the case of the United States and a few other of the Abiyalan colonies. In Britain, colonial garrisons of the British Empire, from Africa to India to everywhere else where there was a colonial garrison, that's what the police are based off of. They have the same helmets. They just changed them to navy blue. But that's an importation of colonial policy that formed an institution that is definitively fascist. You look at the policing policy now, and as I was talking about, it has direct links to Israel. The attack on the rights of children is a means to target a minority group. It's nothing fucking new. But the assault we have seen on those rights in Palestine by Israel, settler colonial project that is claimed to be the most liberal country in the Middle East, blah, 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 blah. Because they have shown a pathway for complete erasure of the most vulnerable people's rights in a group, of women's rights, of children's rights, of LGBTQ plus rights, all across the board. because albeit it's people's popular beliefs, the reason why the people like that don't have those rights in Israel is because of Israel. Sorry, in Palestine, is because of Israel. Israel doesn't have good rights LGBTQ plus people in Israel, let alone in Palestine. These rights are stripped away, and that stripping of rights paves the way for the targeting of of the whole group. You target trans kids, and as this article that we're diving into shows, escalates. It's the targeting of trans adults. And again, it's going to be trans women that they're mainly going to target, and that will affect trans men. But like they start with trans children and then go for trans women. Trans misogyny will be the chief means of discrimination and of dissemination of discrimination to the common people as a way to get them to turn against us. Most average people couldn't give a shit 10 years ago. A lot of average people still couldn't give a shit now, but it's starting, the tables are turning against us. And it's because that they're able to use these inflammatory anti-trans things and make accounts, like some accounts, like make statements like that as a means of amicable study, or however you wanna implicate what the fuck she is approaching this situation as, or how with Dr. Cass. It's wild. Oh, someone is showing me the vegan goods. Sorry. Oh, my keyboard's still turned off. There we go. That's... Police in helicopter. They come for marijuana. Policeman in the streets. Burning the cali weed. Still just trying to, like, fucking let my head cool a bit. It's all this fucking reading. What time are we on? I've been going for like an hour and 50 minutes. Fucking I had this super medical stuff on the go. It's called like Super Buff Cherry. I imagine the cherries are very buff, very... I don't know if it's named after like a brand thing or something. Is it like a... Should be like a brand of like fucking like fucking cleaner or something. Use your super buff to clean your floors, mate. You back and get them shiny tiles, Fucking icon. It ain't my main program, but it might confuse the Americans into thinking it is programme. Programme. Assure you it is not said that way. The role of psychologists was sidelined and constrained. We were pressured to overlook the broader psychological landscape in which gender identity exploration and distress occur. This is quote-unquote diagnostic overshadowing in its worst form. What the fuck does diagnostic overshadowing mean? is an attribution of a person's symptoms to a psychiatric problem when such symptom actually suggests a comorbid condition. So she's trying to say, this is what I was pointing out earlier. I was right on what I was saying about what she's trying to say about Panacea stuff. She's exposed herself as trying to turn around and say that actually it could be a comorbid disease. It could be a other condition of mental health or psychological health that's there, rather than just turning around and giving into the idea that they're just trans. That's what she's trying to say. Like, this is TERF doctoring of, it's like doctoring. I don't mean like rewriting things. I mean like TERF doctor behavior, if I ever fucking saw one. Like, turning around and being like, well, I mean, she's calling, for one, in her own, this is a proper fucking term. In her own use of this term implies that you're on about a psychiatric issue in the first place. Being trans is not a psychiatric problem. Gender dysphoria is, by all means, a psychiatric problem. Like, gender dysphoria, I mean, there's multiple aspects to gender dysphoria. It's not just psychiatric, but, like, it is a thing that occurs with your psychology based on, like, issues pertaining towards, like, gender identity and feeling uncomfortable in, like, being in the wrong body, being the wrong person that you're compared to what you're meant to be. Gender dysphoria is, like, something that could be psychiatrically diagnosed. Britain has an obsession with gender dysphoria as being a requirement to be considered trans. Obsessed. That aside, she's already implying, I don't have the highlight on, she's already implying that it's a psychiatric problem above me. But then she's like, well, maybe they're not just mentally ill because they're trans. It's just an absurd thing to say. It's not a mental illness. But also, there could be something else there. So we shouldn't jump the gun and give gender treatment. We should instead shovel people through the mental health system. That's what she's basically turning around and saying. She's saying, like, rather than going through the care plan that suits the child, works well with the way that, like, a GP, you don't normally get to see GP, so a child GIDS doctor, pediatrician can turn around and prescribe the kid puberty blockers instead. She's like, well, no, you know what they should do? Is they should treat it like there must be some comorbid psychiatric conditions going on and ruin the child's life. You know what's the funniest thing about all of this? You know what's the funniest thing? If I have co-occurring, because it's not a morbid thing to be trans, but if something else is co-occurring relating to my struggles of gender identity, which for all intents and purposes, you are most likely trans and have those things, rather than it being like, oh no, you have those things, you're no longer trans. But, like, if I have those things, do you know what will happen? They will be discoverable. You put me on puberty blockers, or I get onto HRT, and things still don't change. I do feel better that I'm on those things, and I've had some improvements, but I still got some mental health stuff going on that I can't really wrap my head around. Then you can do an investigation into those things. It's all about the fact of how you are supposed to operate. Like, this is Hippocratic oath shit right here. You follow a procedure that matches the condition, and you do not snake around a million and one different forms of treatment at once out the gates. No, you target an issue with the care that is most applicable. If someone comes to you and they say, Doctor, I'm a girl. I was identified as a male when I was born, but I'm a girl, I'm a woman, I'm a female. What is the doctor's means of treatment for that? Can anyone answer the first means of treatment for that? It's gender affirming care. Not to presume that the person is, like, out of their mind. You get gender affirming care. So, like, this is major bigotry on an insane level that is compartmentalizing people as as like psychiatric problems, like they're just a minority group. It's representing us as a psychological conundrum, not as a group of people with rights that need to be respected. I need to go to the toilet again. I'm sorry. I'll be right back. Jesus. This is what happens when you talk about the British and the TERFs. Fucking bowel movements. It's bad for your body. Bad for your health. It's almost like TERFs should just not exist. Okay. Just gotta catch my breath. My glasses are so bent out of shape. I only had them like a month. I wish I had full metal frames. I get the glass, doesn't stay in the glasses very well, but I already like sat on mine and had the fucking lenses pop out anyway. Metal frames just don't tend to warp as easy. Like, the like bendiness of like, scary. Emphasis on a drive for evidence-based practice. One second, I can move my mic to a better position. My Jaffa cakes are in the way. 1 second. Move them out the way. Okay. Emphasis on a drive for evidence-based practice. As Cass highlights, we ended up here largely due to a lack of rigorous guidance worldwide. Only Sweden and Finland were assessed to meet international guideline development standards, underscoring this is a shocking absence of quality research to base guidance upon. There's actually there's a fair amount of research that you could base guidance off, but even if we're gonna go by this practice, who is it that's not doing the research? Who is it that's not like looking into this stuff? Is that a trans people problem or a cis people fucking problem? So rather than opening your fucking mouth, if there's supposedly not enough research on there, Cass, you'd go do the fucking research or help fund the research, help push for the research, rather than just going, well, you know, there's not really enough to say, so let's just ban puberty blockers, even though there's loads of research that tell you it helps. But that involves listening to trans kids, you see, because that research, you know, predicates upon knowing the perspectives of trans kids. No, some white petty bourgeois cis woman. So we'll get our advice from. I'm sure she doesn't have any biases that would affect or harm trans youths, trans people. You know? Stop my glasses from slipping down, because when it gets like half and half on your eyes, make my head fucking feel like I'm being drilled into. Like, In the absence of science, policies have instead looked to activism. This is full of shit. This is full of shit. What do we call science? It's a rational understanding of things. That is the basics of it, you know? Like, science, which is derived from the word science, you know? Like, it's the rationalizing what would otherwise seem arcane, you know? The trans people have been writing literature on being trans for decades. Actually, millennia. But, like, in the current trans movements of the modern day that she's referring to as the activists, they have written their own works on their own experiences. And for decades, there have been as many illegitimate as there have been legitimate studies, scientific ones, peer-reviewed papers, on trans people. There have been a lot of illegitimate ones that these dickheads will still cite to this day, like the is it autogynephilia, the AGP bullshit and stuff like that. You know, that stuff all gets cited. So they're able to find studies that aren't activism when it comes to finding transphobic bullshit, disproven studies. But there's studies that disprove them. The studies that have been done in support of trans medical care. Who knows? Where are they? It's basically their mentality, even though there's loads of them. There's loads of them. There aren't enough of them, and that's because research is underfunded, understaffed, underrepresented, undersupported. So, like, this is bullshit. The activism is in support of practical science. You cannot have a rational understanding of something that you do not have a practical understanding of, or that a practical understanding has not been substantiated of before. Where does the practical understanding come from? Does it come from cis people? Or does it come from trans people? And then scientific researchers can take that and exponentialize on it, develop from it. Experience is the only pathway to genuine knowledge. Primary, secondary, tertiary. So, like, all science is derived from some level of empirics. It's how you rationalize. Activism is inherently based in empirics. It is a practical response to a practical problem. So to conflate this idea of activism being unscientific is fucking bullshit. One second. I will be back in literally 2 seconds. Ow, my fucking foot. Ah, I just kicked the fucking door frame. Ah. They don't make door frames wide enough for ADHD people. What the fuck is this abuse? Oh, fuck's sake. Oh, great. How do I quit? There we go. Fuck me. Sorry if my camera was glitching out. Fucking opened up something trying to click on the taskbar. Using a computer like a boomer. Should have just alt-tabbed. But, I forgot to switch it to main programme. Wait, my camera... Did my camera flip? It does. Why? I think I noticed this the last stream, but, like, I only just re-noticed this. This is trippy. It feels like something I should fix. I think it's funnier if I don't, though, don't you? Anyway. Let's make this bigger. Consequently, professional bodies have repeatedly released guidance which is at best vague and at worst unevidenced. When you say lacking of evidence, unevidenced sounds so wrong. And politically driven. What does she mean by politically driven? Because when you don't have your rights, is that a purely medical matter or is that now a political matter? Like, no shit, rights changes were politically driven. The civil rights eras were all politically fucking driven. It doesn't change the matter of fact of the issue. It doesn't change the core pleneth of what needs to be done. Inanity is as TERFism. Pure and simple, but it's using, as we talked about earlier, polite transphobia. Indeed, many clinicians have been ignored and, like James says, even punished by their governing organizations for raising concerns. The same concern. What does she mean by, like? So, like, yeah. The guy is, like, fucking. He got in trouble. I'm remembering this now. For basically, like, pushing, like, biological reductivism. Great. But I guess now we're turning into this is that's his this is him commenting on stripping gender affirming care from trans minors. That's him. Who are and now Britain is leading the world on transgender sanity. That's his words to describe stripping the most vulnerable members of our community from their affirming care. Keep that in mind as to who this other doctor, this Catherine, is basing our positions off. The doctors she aligns herself with. This is what they mean by safeguarding. Just keep that in perception. Even in the wake of the review. The same concerns organizations now acknowledge in the wake of the review. As a result, psychologists have felt adrift and afraid, unsure if we were truly serving the best interests of our patients. Therefore, the cast review's emphasis on caution, a more holistic care model, and a drive for evidence-based practice is a breath of fresh air. It encourages us to recognize the importance of considering factors such as mental health, family dynamics, and past trauma. These are all things that get considered. Like, these are all things that get considered. Like, this is insane to think that they don't consider any of these things. But she's trying to turn around and say, not that they're being considered. She's using clever language. What she's referring to is them being prioritized over gender affirming care. Basically, the idea that you should go to like CAMS, which is the child assistant like mental health services, and go through the red tape there. Went through the CAMS systems growing up. It never really helped me. This experience you'll hear most people from the UK talk about it. But what they want to do is they want to shove you through mental health services indefinitely rather than provide you gender affirming care and then assess other means of issues that could be going on with you after giving you that care. You know, like if you've got a headache, you normally give someone like I don't know. Don't have an American brand for y'all guys, so ibuprofen might be too confusing. Or paracetamol. I know the American brand for that, so the Americans can feel involved. You go get your Tylenol, because you got a headache. You take the Tylenol. It don't work. You go to the doctor. He might give you some ibuprofen. You know? You go, you get your fucking affirming care because you're trans. You're still having some fucking like mental health issues that you're struggling with that were bigger than just let's say you do have gender dysphoria, and it's bigger than that. You got more problems. You all the way down to the doctor's office and you request for some mental health support. It's almost like we have a referral system and a medical fucking system that has the records of the things they provide you care for before. And like there's psychological services within this like a medical service. So if you need it, you can go for it. So like it's this inanity of somehow claiming that like psychologists and psychiatrists are just completely cast aside in all of this. And it's like it's not your job to determine if someone's trans or not. I'm sorry. Shut up. It is for the person to determine. That is a very personal thing. And to suggest that someone is like fucking incapable of deciding that amongst themselves because they're a fucking kid or something, it's insane. Like, they know who they are. Trans people can't decide whether or not they are trans. Obviously, that's up to cis people to decide kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. Fucking exactly. Great to see you here, caffeine. I could do with some more caffeine, actually. Fucking recharge the ADHD battery, but exactly. It's this fucking complete inanity. And this whole idea of, whoa, man, we need a more holistic approach to the problem relates back to the previous thing she said about diagnostic overshadowing as to try and be like, well, you know, maybe there's some comorbidity going on here, which the term comorbidity implies that she sees being trans as a disorder, like straight up. She sees it as a disorder. Comorbidity implies a multitude of disorders that have shared like causality on you, so like the way they affect you is like shared symptoms. That doesn't apply for a condition, which is like a state of existence. Like if I have fucking autism and I have ADHD, which really should be called like ADHC, and they share symptoms. You wouldn't call it comorbidity. You would call it co-occurrence because it's a shared thing like that. You shouldn't even be using language like co-occurrence around being fucking trans, but like comorbidity explicitly implies a disorder, and diagnostic overshadowing pertains to the a psychiatric condition. So it implies that being trans is like something psychiatric, something inside the noggin that's like not like justifiable by like reality. And it's very very anti-materialist, like postmodernist shit. Like it is completely trashing any understanding of like actual sexual gender and like the revolution on those concepts that trans people have been bringing to the table. And god, the actual radical shit that people should be accepting isn't even in like common parlance. Like fuck me. Like this is freaking out about how the liberals have been terribly, like, still restricting our rights while supposedly giving them us at the same time. And that's too radical for these people. They're turning to fascism because, darn, those gender communists stole my daughter. Like, level shit. It encourages us to recognize the importance of considering factors such as mental health. See, it's just like fucking stupid. The review reaffirms our commitment to working with the whole person, not just their gender identity. Since when has gender affirming care just been working with someone's gender identity? I wanna fucking blow a blood vessel in my brain. This is depravity. This is depravity. They're turning around and reducing gender affirming care to just a matter of identification fetishism. Like that it is a fetishized over attachment to a need to be like identified a certain way, nothing more. And it's like, gender identity, that's like the most important facet of like being trans, I guess. But like an even bigger part of it is to be treating us like we're whole people. And that is not what is being done here, because when you trivialize gender affirming care as a psychological issue and treat it as something that is the same as um like delusion, like hysteria. We'll use that word, and people who know the history of hysteria will know why I'm choosing it. That's what they're doing here. They're trying to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. It's not giving to hysteria too much now. Is the cis-splaining. What's going on here? It's depravity. Finally, by calling for better research and changes to be focused on evidence, it redirects decision making back to this, a core medical tenet. You haven't actually necessarily, you haven't defined a core medical tenet, you've just, so self-serving. Politicization, poor evidence, and limited options. Many are asking how a national pathway for highly vulnerable children could have developed so many fundamental issues. They are right not to seek blame, but so that we can understand how we got here and avoid repeating past catastrophes. That's like, who is this many are asking? And like, where's the evidence of vulnerable children could have developed so many fundamental issues? The review focuses only on children and their support, yet many gender distressed adults are arguably equally vulnerable. This language is trying to suggest that people who are in a state of gender distress might not be trans, but could be convinced they are by poor medical treatment. I am still on a waiting list for the gender identity clinic, the GIC. I have been on that waiting list for like a year and a half now. It only took me that long to get on it as well, because I was slowed down by medical malfeasance for 9 months. So like, I'm 2 and some years overdue. Like, the shitness of this service gives you a fucking enough time to contemplate it, that like you could have fucking like gone through like the ways of the whims with this fucking shit. Like, they suffocate us. And then we're gonna turn around and be like, whoa, 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 these gender distress, like adults and minors, they're just making like wanton mistakes and are very vulnerable. I mean, the idea that an adult is equally vulnerable to a fucking child is actually like hilarious to me. But secondly speaking, They're the ones making children vulnerable by segregating and now denying since what's it like mid last year. They have been denying trans youth gender affirming care, especially puberty blockers. Denying. And they have the cheek to say that actually it's the gender distressed people, by virtue of being gender distressed, who are the vulnerable ones, whether they're adults, whether they're children, and they're equally vulnerable to the trans menace, to the politicization, to the poor evidence, to the limited options. You see the fucking choice wording, and oh, fuck off, Copilot. Fuck me. Fuck. AI. We survived the AI attack. Now, the choice language here is what you have to be very careful of. It's very articulate. What they are trying to turn around and say is that your kid or your family member who's trans may be a victim of these three things. That this is really the problem more than anything. Sadly, adult care is likely to be affected by many of the same highlighted issues: politicization, poor evidence, and limited options. She just said the thing I pointed out loud. Like she just said that it's it's the same. It is clear that our learning should be applied here too, with a call for adult service investigation. As we move forward, it is essential that we embrace the lesson of the cast. For psychologists, it is a call to step up and recommit ourselves to the principles of our profession. Our role will be vital in change. By integrating recommendations across NHS practice, we can ensure that we are providing the best possible care for gender questioning individuals of all ages. I do need to pop to the toilet again. Be right back. Ah, so sorry. My bowels are being attacked by the TERFs 3 times in a row now. It's not good. I did have more stuff I want to cover, but I don't think my bowels are gonna get any nicer to me. Like recently, like missed out on some medication because of a prescription mistake. So I think it's taking it hard on me. But I'm gonna blame the TERFs still. I think it has to be their fault. Like if we're gonna be deductive in our reasoning, I haven't had. Oh yeah, I haven't had like a. No, I had one bowel movement this morning, but it was like regular as far as like missing my medication would go. But then I start this stream, I start reading the TERF articles, and the more closer I get to a first-hand quote from a TERF, the more often I need to go fucking. My bathroom smells like a chemical weapons factory right now. It's just a perspective, a perspectivizing bit of my wisdom. Enjoyed that information. And it's been getting, like, progressively more, like, bad bowels as we've gone along. It's like I'm like fucking 2 more like poisonings off from just like fucking liquid ass, you know? Fucking let's go back to the 2012 memes. Like, let's not. But liquid ass was fun. Let's be real, you know? It is clear that our learning should be applied here too, with a call for adult service investigation. Basically, you did a good job cutting out trans kids' care. Now let's make it at the least much harder than it already is for trans adults to get care. As I've been talking about, it is really hard in this country. Unless you got the money to pump your way through the private industry to get trans care in this country. Full stop. It's not easy for adults to get trans care. I can assure you that me getting these from Thailand is not something the NHS set up, and that I am DIYing. I have to DIY. The possibilities that, like, sorry for the triggering way of putting it, the possibilities that I could have gone the way of the dodo. Actually, probably not a good example. We killed the dodo, not it killing itself. But, committing suicide. If I couldn't have these after I came out, was high. Which is why, before I ever even spoken to a doctor, before I even went through any of that gaslighting, heck, I made the mistake. You really should get blood tests, but I didn't even get a blood test because I didn't feel comfortable even mentioning it to my doctor. Because the way the system works and how transphobic it is, and everything I learned from Abby Martin at Philosophy Tube, from trans sisters I know who have been through the services and have dealt with having trans care just be a nightmare to even sniff or acquire. And the only people I know have had like smooth experiences have been people who can afford private. Put me in a state where I was terrified to even speak to my doctor, terrified that they'd use their authority against me to fuck with my head. And you know what they did? So they're supposed to do a form. They are, not me, and that's important detail, and I'll get to that why. And the form is the referral form for GIC. And the doctor is meant to do it because they're supposed to do it with the patient. It's one of those like questionnaire-like forms where you ask the patient for certain information, and other information that's like just on my file can just be put in there. Like me having autism and fibromyalgia is like common conditions because they have like loads of bullshit requests in there that's just like unrelated to you being trans. Like that's just all in there. Like it's a name, but they gave it for me to fill out. It's not how standard procedure works. But they did fill in a few parts. In the section called preferred name, which in brackets next to preferred name, it says, do not fill in unless preferred name is different to name assigned at birth. They put my dead name in the preferred name box. In gender of identity, they put my gender assigned at birth in that box, typed in a computer before printing it off. That's what they did. And so then, do you know what that did to me? Shut me down. I even managed to, like, tell the doctor, like, I got pissed. I did manage to get my word over to the doctor. I got a blank form after that, which is still not standard procedure. It wasn't until the December of that year that I had a form done the proper way for the referral, where they sit down and do the fucking form with you over a phone, which is not really how I like to do things like that, but still, I got to actually do it in the end. But eventually I was given a blank form. But just the fact that my form had been manipulated, the first one I was given, to turn around, um, like, and, the, turn around and just manipulate my forms to say that my gender assigned at birth is my current gender of identity, to say that my dead name is my preferred name, when it very apparently said that that box is to be empty if somehow supposedly my dead name was my preferred name, which I had never stated as such. I had very much stated my name as the name that I wanted. It was sabotage, and I never got it corrected. Never, never got the referral form sent off until December that year. I requested that form originally in March that year. I was set back by 9 months. 9 months. It's 24, turned 25 in that period. Imagine what that's like. Someone who's fucking 13 or 16 or 19. Really fucking ground yourself into those years of your life. Just try and have a bit of considerable thought on that one. Oh, you're commenting on the... You're mentioning Intel, but, like, that means you're watching the stream from the start while the stream is still live. The thing about Intel was, like, hours ago. It's a really confusing comment. I was like, what the fuck? What are you going on about Intel for? It was me bitching about Intel Virtual Cam. I am doing as well as I can be. You're not gonna get the answer to that until, like, fucking 3 hours later, because you're going to start the thing. So you're asking a question I cannot answer for you straight away. As we move forward, it is essential that we embrace the lessons of the CAS review for psychologists. It is a call to step up and recommit ourselves. Our role will be vital change. Our role will be vital in change. Vital in stripping away the rights of vulnerable people, vulnerable children. That's what they're vital in. By integrating recommendations across NHS practice, we can ensure that we are providing the best possible care for gender questioning individuals of all ages. I hate it just being reduced to gender questioning. Me being a trans woman isn't me questioning my fucking gender. It's me being a fucking woman. God, you mean gender queer? Gender fucking queer. Gender questioning. Fuck out of here, this kind of language. Ugh. There's a lot more to dive into on this. I don't think this is going to be something that can be come up and aired in a single stream. Well, it could, but like, my brain has been hurting and like, my fucking gut feels nasty, so I like might be ending it in the next like 20 or 40 minutes. But I at least I'm taking a break from the reading portions. Oh god, I can't see now. Everything's all, yo, is this Mario? Everything's all 8-bit. Oh god. You don't notice how bad your eyes are until you need glasses, and it's like. The world is diving into fascism. Fascism needs a scapegoat for economic crisis, for destitution, and the austerity it wants to use as a fucking weapon against that economic destitution, alongside jingoism. They need a scapegoat. This attack on trans affirming care is fanning the flames for that scapegoat. It's terrifying. The glasses are fucking hurting my head when I wear them. But I can't not fucking wear them either. Ugh. You're like, why don't you get contact lenses? And I just expect them to be incredibly uncomfortable too. And while I'm dealing with dry eye syndrome at the moment, these dry eyes don't do so well with contactees on them. Shit. But this is an attack on the entire community's rights. Like, they are challenging our right to exist. This is an institutional move to suppress our right to even exist. please, especially cis people, consider what I am trying to express here. This is not just a reorganization of how we approach care, a more holistic approach towards gender affirming care or gender distress, however she fucking tried to Orwellianize it. This is a move towards extermination. It's subtle, but it's a move in that direction. It's a move in the direction America is going with their like protect Kids Day as a celebration for Trump. What was it? Removing trans kids from sports? Or is it? No, it was banning puberty blockers, I think, actually, or pushing a federal ban on puberty blockers that like states cannot kind of. I can't remember what it was, but like you know, that's the logic we're going with here. You know, they are going to call it these softer words, but it's all the same shit. When they're going on about safeguarding and they're like, whoa, wait a second. Are you sure all these trans people are trans? Some of them could just be mentally ill. I would know as a cis person whether someone is trans or not. Like, that is, like, what they're saying. Like what Caffeine commented, you know? Like, trans people can't decide whether or not they're trans. Obviously, that's up to cis people to decide. That's the mentality. That is the actual mentality that we are being provided here as serious medical journalage, you know, serious medical review. Is fuck what the people experiencing the thing understand or go through. We're just gonna decide. And, you know, we're taking a holistic viewpoint that treats the matter as a psychiatric issue in the first place, and then tries to be like, well, you know, there could be some comorbid stuff that's going on that means that, you know, it's not a smoking gun to say it's gender affirming care that's the answer. And it's basically just using a thing that, I mean, in a very abusive and transphobic society is going to be a thing for a lot of trans kids as well as trans adults, is that we've got a lot of trauma. Like, that's just a thing that a society like this creates. I mean, the amount of like trans people who've been thrown on the streets by their family for being trans is it is exemplary of this. Now, the so like there's gonna be a lot of people who are traumatized who need care, and they can find that care. They will know what to express around their needs for that care. The idea that because this exists, that that you can then turn around and go, wait a second, we should avoid GAC and go for all the other means first before we get there, is basically trying to turn around and trivialize it and consider that like people wanting to change their gender is more so a mental health issue. That's what they're trying to say. And that is so unsubstantiable. So fucking full of shit. Like, find me a large group of people with a mental health condition that causes them to change gender, because I haven't seen it. And I'm fucking trans. You'd think I'd know if there was like a very common practice of a large number of people trying to, because that's what they're trying to be like. They're trying to be like, well, you know, maybe the larger percentage of it are actually just people who are mentally ill. And they consider transness a mental illness anyway, but they're you know, they're starting at the easier goalposts to move before they get to the harder ones. They're shifting the Overton window. So, you know, they start with the whole like, well, you know, some other mental illnesses you could be going through that could be the problem. We don't actually have any evidence of that, but we should force you through a rigor to supposedly figure that out, which I think is bullshit, but to supposedly figure that out, to delay any care that could help you in that means, even though you came to us for gender affirming care, and because you have, like, well, you're trans, or you're trans and you have gender dysphoria, you know, etc., you've come for gender affirming care. Well, let's say you don't have gender dysphoria and you went for the care. They'll try and force you for a gender dysphoria diagnosis. Then they'll try and extrapolate into some other stuff and think it's like well, what about your childhood? What about this, about that? And they're delaying all the forms of care, and they're bureaucratizing it. They're making it so that you go through all this red tape and bureaucracy when you went for gender affirming care. You went to the doctor because you are in a state where you need gender affirming care. Whether it's from informed consent or whether it's that you went to a doctor about being trans and needed advice on the support you could get for it. Either way, you are requesting gender affirming care. Your needs would suggest that what you need is gender affirming care. So it is nonsensory, nonsensical approach towards care. Now, why would quote unquote science, shouldn't really call it that, be absurdist? Why would a medical review, or that Catherine's response to the medical review, that doctor, or the establishment institutional policy that is based in this supposed science be absurdist in how it represents data, in how it represents people's needs and interests? The reason why it would be absurdist is so it can lie. It can misinform and disinform. So it can confuse. So it can conflate. So that it can water down the gender needs of these vulnerable children. That is why. It is to disseminate a transphobic perspective on society, to create a perception that sees transness as a scapegoat, as a bullion pig. It's creating a pinata out of transness for people to smack and target as a scapegoat, for too long now has the doctor's hands been forced. Forced to do what? Provide fucking healthcare? They don't want to provide healthcare to fucking people. They could go get a fucking job elsewhere. No one is fucking stopping them, Like, I'd be happy for a less transphobic NHS, so, they could all fuck off. Go work for Andrew Wakefield, because this is the level of shit I'm getting here. This cast review is Andrew Wakefield level fucking research. Andrew fucking Wakefield. For those who don't know who Andrew Wakefield is, he's the guy who started the modern hysteria that vaccines cause autism through what's known as, this is a bullshit condition he made up called autistic endocrinitis, which is basically trying to say that, like, measles in the bowels from the MMR vaccine cause autism. Because, like, there's, like, some truth that, like, some aspects of, like, the like, they're traditional vaccines, so they give you, like, a smaller analog to, like, measles, and apparently some of it can be discovered in your ass. There's, like, no negative effect that I think has been discovered from this, though, but he used this as a way to try and, like, make an excuse that, like, autistic people, like, their autism was caused by, like, measles appearing in their ass, and he would, like, plant it, like he was doing, like, rigorous, like, exams, like, too often with a lack of like restrictions and like proper efficacy of like shoving fucking cameras up a fucking like, and like taking samples from like kids' asses, like sometimes fucking tens of times a day, and then would make up fake results that would turn around and be like, yes, you know, all these autistic kids, they got measles in their ass, fucking like, and that's causing their autism. And like planting fucking diseases inside kids' bodies, like falsifying evidence. Andrew Wakefield is the level of shit that we're seeing from here. They haven't reached his level yet because they haven't moved to like more extensive, like outright trials of the shit they're planning. But it is that level of I'm just gonna make up the data, like to fit my preperceptive, my pre-prescribed politics. That's what this fucking shit is. Through and fucking through. They're gonna kill our youth. That's what the wonderful trans activists have been pointing out to Wes Streeting every time he shows his fucking ugly face. Is telling Wes Streeting that he's killing trans kids in the name of safeguarding, killing trans kids. I don't know about you, but I want a world that is safe for every single child, especially trans children. I want a world that is safe. Safeguarding is a big part of guardianship, you know? Kids don't raise themselves. Kids don't teach themselves, although we learn a lot of stuff ourselves growing up. Kind of have to, but we're always learning off each other, always learning off someone else. Learning stuff yourself just normally means without guardianship support, which gets into like the holes that exist in guardianship's ability to relate to children and understand children and respect a child's interests. But like when we are looking at, you know, safeguarding in a real sense, safeguarding for gender distressed children, whatever Orwellian shit that term is to be used for, is to trust your child's understanding of their own identity and to do everything in your power as a fucking guardian to support your child's identity. You try and force your child to be something that your child has strictly said they are not, and you will inextricably break your bond with them. Like, that is the simples of it. If your child says they are trans, I hate to break it to you, but your child is probably trans. I know, wild, isn't it? It's like you know, it's wild to think you know your own personality, an identity, and like who you are as an individual, what you are meant to be. You're gonna know that, not some cis person, no matter who they are in relation to you. No, you know that. And so if a guardian, an authority figure, a fucking civil servant wants to turn around and wants to like do what will safeguard, again I hate this term, the gender distressed children, trans children, is gender affirming care, not banning puberty blockers indefinitely. I did say I'm a bit too headachy for reading too much more on the article front, but like just to get it in words from a government source. Ban on puberty blockers to be made indefinite on experts' advice. That's the world we're building. That's the holistic model that the cast review is supposedly promoting. To ban puberty blockers, not to reassess how we prescribe puberty blockers, like was being suggested in the vague language being used by Dr. Catherine Webb. No. Banned. Indefinite. As in, because it was a temporary ban at first, and then they made it an indefinite ban, which means policy is the only thing you can do to change that ban. It is now legislative. This is the world that we are heading in for. We did this before the US even did it. This is from 2024. And this is the permanent ban, and it's from 2024. The temporary ban was started in March, April, May. It is sometime in the middle of 2024. It was like a 6-month temporary ban, and to be reassessed, down the line, and then led to the indefinite ban, a perma ban, you might say, on given puberty blockers. Right-wing praxis, agitate, deceive, organize. Yes, exactly. Agitation, deception, and dissemination. It's very important, like what they put across in their actions against minorities. This is the rise of Nazism in Europe going on. It's influencing all of this. And just like how the Social Democrats that were in power a decade before Hitler were influenced by the rising fascism and in that case moderate fascism, we are seeing a very similar thing here now, where even though we have the supposed Labour Party in power, we're dealing with Nazi politics still. Or, well, fascist politics, Strasseristic like shit, you know? Not all the way. You know, Labour is still one liberal boot in one corridor and one fascist boot in another, just like the Democrat Party had been. And there are limitations in that regard. We'll see them replaced. Reform seemed to be like a very likely replacement, but I would be careful, because it could be Britain first, which a lot of their members, I guarantee you, will be members of Reform. Who is Britain First? Britain First is the direct successor to the British Nationalist Party, and is tied with the same biker orgs, especially groups like the Outlaws MC. Well, they're underling orgs. The Outlaws are very careful of why they involve themselves with the EDL. But the biking orgs that are involved with the EDL are backing Britain First. Britain First is backed by a lot of the old National Front lot. National Front is a neo-Nazi party from the UK that formed in post-war Britain as a sort of like a replacement for the Mosleyite sort of strain of things. It was a more a mixture. You got a bit of Hitlerism, got a bit of Strasserism, and That's the National Front. There's too fucking. It even gets all factionalistic when you start looking at the Hitler and the Strasser and the that goes on with like Nazi bodies over here, but still, um, the I guess you also have the Socialist Motherland Party, but everyone thinks they're lunatics. Um, they're a Strasserist party if the name didn't give it away. The So like Britain First is a major danger here. Either way, because a lot of their ilk are in the Reform Party, and Britain First could gain traction because Reform might further and further become across too moderate for the rising right-wing radicalism that we are seeing throughout Europe and America. I mean, that's kind of the thing that happened to a lot of the rhinos, which is why that they were like hugging the Democrats' legs throughout the last election. Is that they're like not welcome anymore. I was explaining it with the election. The reason why the Conservatives lost was was not because Labour got more votes than them. It's because they got less votes than they did the last election. Labour got less votes than they did in 2019. It's just the Tories got even less votes than they did in 2019. Because the right wing moved further right. The Conservative Party had outlived its welcome and was no longer useful. And I actually think part of the more coordinated effort on the side of the bourgeoisie and the petty bourgeoisie is that a Labour victory would be very useful for a a persecution complex. Quite like the U.S. had used Biden's inevitable election as a means for a persecution complex. So like I think that was a big part as to why, with all of the bullshit articles, lies and slander made up about immigrants pertaining to things as heavy as like sexual assault and rape gangs, they actually chose something that was on the mid of the ladder of like awful things immigrants get accused of killing like white women, white children, white all sorts all the time, as this big like they're attacking our vulnerables, our property, is the mentality that white men put to the planet. But we didn't get a riot like this in response to all of those bullshit things. We got them stirring the wok of shit, but we never got the kind of riots we got. The time we got those riots was after, straight after Labour was elected. Like within a breath of each other. Like it was the first issue in UK politics that Keir Starmer had to like major challenge that he had to deal with. That was how on the cusp of the British election those riots were. I can't just think that that's out of nowhere. I know that they managed to agitate the riots as heavy as they did was because there were a lot of people who were shit out of luck with the system. Working class rights have gone to shit. Labor availability has gone to shit, and the petty bourgeoisie are good at stirring the wok on this. Not everyone who went out and like had an issue with the system were anti-immigrant people blowing up fucking like Holiday Inns, but it was a major part of it. And they managed to get a lot of people who weren't thinking about that stuff to start blaming immigrants. The right is getting much more bolder and much more powerful and are taking advantage of people's justified anger at the capitalist system and redirecting it at migrants. And they're going to do the same with us trans people. They're going to direct that anger at us. It's like there's the old saying of like, first they came for the communists, then they came for the Jews. It feels like this time around, it's first they came for the immigrants, then they came for the trans people. Will you do nothing? Will you make the mistake of history and do nothing until it is you who ends up in a concentration camp like the rest of us? Is that the kind of mentality? I'm talking to the cis people here that we want to encapsulate. Cis white people, ignore the immigrants, ignore the trans people, and then sound the alarm, the alarm, the alarm when it comes for you. Because that's the kind of thing we need to be careful of. Do you know cis people have tried to tell me that Trump is like a nothing burger still, and is actually not a Nazi, and it's all performance politics is insane. Like the guy literally shipped off activists who are in the U.S. on green cards, which means legal citizen, to an El Salvador death camp, concentration camp. The, the, how nasty does it need to get when you are deporting people to concentration camps? Like, fuck me. Does the El Salvador prison need to be called Dachau for, like, fucking white leftists to go, ooh? It should not have to be spelt in capital fucking letters for us to realize the issue at hand here. And, like, the UK does this polite transphobia, so it's even easier brushed aside by, like, cis people. How many, like, cis UK people have you heard going on about how awful the cast review is? Like, you don't. And it's being implemented now, even more extensively, in congruency with the Sullivan Report. It's exonerating depraved beliefs that at some point in the past we were actually able to push back on in society, in civil society. Now they are completely suffocating it. The fact that I have had to sign a petition to asking the UK government not to put conversion therapy as a possible therapeutic solution to being trans on the trans affirming care registry is insane. The fact that that is even a thing that I have to worry about. How liberal is the world when that is a consideration? How laissez-faire is things really when that is a consideration? Our rights are being disintegrated. Not just rearranged, not just mangled with, eroded like a meandering stream of hot magma. Eroded. We need to organize. We need to struggle. Because institutionally, which, like, you need to fight those aspects of things. You got to prevent the Overton window from shifting left. Sorry, shifting right. Sorry, fucking autism. From shifting right. We need organized struggle. We have, like, unfortunately been pushed and forced by cis society to rely too much on the institutional means for these things to change. And it still took activism, beyond belief amounts of activism, to get the bare scraps of rights that we have managed to muster together. And they're being eroded away. They're just being eroded away. And because we don't have, like, full, national reaching trans organizations that's, like, in my local town. I'm in a semi-rural town. There ain't no fucking, like activism orgs here, like, protecting, like, rights of no one. Ain't shit. And my town's quite big for the fucking countryside. There are plenty of towns nearby that are even fucking smaller, and I can tell you now, they got no representation. We need to build that representation. We need to organize. Otherwise, we're fucked. Institutions are taking away our rights as words slip out of my fucking mouth. I am calling to action that we need more activism in the realms of informative protest against these means and a dissemination of counter counter information against the lies being thrown against the trans community. Otherwise, this will continue to get worse until there isn't a right left. They started with immigrants and are gonna go with trans people. It's the same thing that's happening with the US. You know, immigrants are the main focus, and then they're gonna come for trans people, and they'll move on to the next groups they're gonna target. They're gonna target black culture and history. They're gonna target all sorts of stuff. This is fascism. This is patriarchal barbarism. It's a return to much more puritanical means of patriarchal oppression, which often comes out in reaction to progressive gains, as what like the Nazis were. This isn't the end of this conversation on these means, but it is the end of today's discussion of it. I think, because my head hurts, and I'm drying out a hoarse throat. Getting too old. Turn the half hour down. Trying to sleep here. But protect trans youth by any means possible. We must protect trans youth and not let this system destroy the lives of so many children. Thank you so much. I need to keep on with this topic. Other articles I haven't talked about, and this is going to be a continuing issue as we go along. Trans rights is under fucking siege at the moment. Has been for a while. But the election of Donald Trump is a signaling of where things are going to go. And I really hope we can change things for the better, but it's so hard to have any hope right now. We need to stay as strong as we can, especially for the most vulnerable of our communities. I hope everyone is staying safe. Keep informed, keep critical, and be analytical about the current state of the situation. Keep your eyes and ears peeled. And keep fighting the fucking system. Tooth and nail. We will win. Love and solidarity, everyone. Çok fayarla.